The story begins inside an ordinary classroom, where everything appears completely normal. The students are chatting, laughing, and waiting for the day to end. Their teacher, Yuko, calmly hands out milk cartons to everyone in the class. Most of the students quickly drink their milk without a second thought. A few troublemakers fool around and spill theirs onto the floor, treating the whole thing like a joke. Surprisingly, Yuko doesn't seem bothered at all. In fact, she barely reacts. The reason is simple. At this point, there are only 2 students in the entire classroom who truly matter to her. As she quietly watches them finish every drop of their milk, a look of relief crosses her face. Whatever she had been waiting for has finally happened. A few moments later, Yuko returns to her desk and calmly announces that this will be her final class. Once the bell rings, she will be resigning from the school forever. The students immediately erupt in celebration. They cheer loudly, convinced that their constant teasing and disrespect have finally driven their teacher away. To them, this is a victory. But Yuko isn't upset by their reaction. She expected it. Instead, she slowly walks to the classroom door and locks it. The students assume she's simply trying to keep the noise from disturbing the neighboring classes. But that isn't the real reason. The truth is far more disturbing. Yuko doesn't want anyone outside the classroom hearing what she is about to say. She turns toward the blackboard and writes a single word in large letters: life. The sound of the chalk scraping against the board echoes through the room. Within seconds, the noisy classroom falls completely silent. Then Yuko begins what she calls her final lesson. She tells the students that today she wants to talk about the purpose of life. To explain it, she starts sharing a painful story from her own past. She reveals that shortly after getting married, she discovered that her husband had been unfaithful. Because of his actions, he contracted HIV. By the time Yuko learned the truth, she was already pregnant. The revelation destroyed their marriage. However, despite everything, Yuko decided to keep her child and raise her daughter alone. The moment she mentions HIV, the atmosphere inside the classroom changes. One frightened girl immediately holds her breath, as if she might somehow catch the virus through the air. Another student starts insulting Yuko and claims that both she and her daughter should never have been allowed near the school. Yuko calmly corrects them. She explains that HIV cannot spread through the air and that even normal physical contact poses no danger. She then tells them something unexpected. She was fortunate enough to survive the disease, and because of that, her daughter was born healthy. Hearing this, the students finally relax, but only for a moment. Yuko then reveals the real reason she is standing before them today. Her daughter died several months ago. The classroom immediately falls silent again. Yuko explains that her daughter drowned in the school's abandoned swimming pool. According to the police investigation, it was simply a tragic accident. The official report concluded that the little girl accidentally fell into the water and drowned. But Yuko doesn't believe that story for a second. She tells the students that she knows her daughter was murdered. Not only that, she knows exactly who is responsible. The people who killed her daughter are sitting inside this very classroom. The students stare at her in disbelief. Yuko explains that 2 students worked together to commit the crime. For now, she won't reveal their names. Instead, she will refer to them simply as Student A and Student B. Then she begins explaining how everything happened. A few months earlier, Yuko had taken her daughter shopping. While walking through a mall, the little girl spotted a bunny-shaped wallet and instantly fell in love with it. She begged her mother to buy it. Unfortunately, Yuko had recently paid several bills and didn't have enough money. She gently promised her daughter that they would come back and buy it another time. As fate would have it, Student A happened to be at the same mall with his mother that day. He overheard the entire conversation. The following day, Student A purchased an identical bunny wallet. Student B accompanied him. Together, they approached Yuko's daughter and presented the gift as if it were a kind gesture. The innocent little girl was thrilled. She happily reached out and accepted the wallet. But the moment she touched it, a powerful electric shock surged through her body. The wallet had been deliberately rigged. Yuko continues her story and explains that the wallet contained a homemade device capable of delivering an electric shock. On its own, the device wasn't powerful enough to kill anyone. At most, it would frighten the victim. But the problem began when Yuko's daughter collapsed after touching it. Student B immediately panicked. Unlike Student A, he genuinely believed the girl had died. Terrified of being blamed and afraid of what his parents and the police would do to him, he made a desperate decision. Thinking he could cover up the incident, he carried Yuko's unconscious daughter to the abandoned swimming pool and threw her into the water. His goal was simple. He wanted everyone to believe it had been a tragic accident. Yuko admits that Student B's plan was surprisingly effective. The police investigation found no signs of foul play. Everything pointed toward accidental drowning. There was no evidence, no witnesses, and no reason for anyone to suspect murder. However, Yuko found something the police missed. Near the swimming pool, she discovered the bunny wallet. Hidden inside was the same electric shock device. The moment she saw it, everything started making sense. A few days before her daughter's death, the same two boys had shown her the exact same invention. Student A had proudly presented it as his greatest creation. He called it the anti-theft wallet. According to him, if a thief tried to steal the wallet, the device inside would deliver an electric shock and scare the thief away. Student A was so proud of the invention that he wanted to submit it to a science competition. But Yuko rejected the idea immediately. She had examined the device and realized it was far too dangerous. The voltage inside the wallet was much higher than it should have been. If someone touched it with wet hands, the consequences could become extremely serious. For safety reasons, she refused to approve his application. What Yuko didn't know was that Student A wasn't willing to accept rejection. After she turned him down, he went directly to the principal and managed to get permission anyway. Somehow, nobody paid close attention to the dangers of the device. When the science competition finally arrived, Student A presented his invention without any proper safety measures. Even more unbelievable, he won. Not only did he win, but he also received the Best Idea Award. Student A became convinced that this invention would make him famous. He imagined newspapers covering his story and people across the country praising his genius. But reality turned out very differently. The next day, his achievement was mentioned only briefly in a small corner of a newspaper. The main headline wasn't about him at all. Instead, the front page focused on a shocking story involving a 13-year-old girl who had murdered her entire family. That was the moment something changed inside Student A. He became obsessed with fame. In his mind, criminals were receiving more attention than inventors. No matter how much effort he put into science, nobody seemed to care. While dangerous people became famous overnight, his accomplishments were ignored. Slowly, this frustration began twisting his way of thinking. At that time, Student A didn't have many friends. Eventually, he became close to Student B, one of the strangest students in the class. Student B wasn't good at academics. He rarely spoke to anyone and was known for being timid and insecure. Yuko remembers another incident involving him. One day, she caught Student B skipping responsibilities and spending his time at a video game shop. As punishment, she forced him to clean the area around the abandoned swimming pool. From that day forward, Student B developed a deep hatred toward her. As Student A and Student B spent more time together, they discovered something they had in common. Both of them hated Yuko. Unfortunately, instead of targeting the teacher directly, they directed their anger toward her innocent daughter. According to Yuko, Student A deliberately increased the voltage inside the wallet before giving it to her daughter. He wanted the electric shock to be severe. What happened afterward led directly to the tragedy that took her life. Yuko then looks around the silent classroom and finally reveals the purpose of this entire story. She says there are two students sitting among them who attacked her daughter and caused her death. Student A and Student B are both present in that room. She explains that she initially wanted justice through legal means. She reopened the case and tried everything possible to bring the truth to light. But during her investigation, she discovered a painful reality. Under Japanese law, children under the age of 14 cannot receive the same punishments as adults. Even if the case was proven, the boys would likely be sent to a juvenile rehabilitation center and eventually released. For Yuko, that was not enough. She knew these boys better than anyone. She believed they fully understood the consequences of their actions. A short stay in a reform school would never make up for what happened to her daughter. The classroom remains frozen in silence as Yuko takes a deep breath and looks directly at her students. Then she says something that sends a chill through the room. "Children, I am a teacher. My job is not only to educate you. My duty is also to help you become good human beings." Yuko then reveals the shocking final step of her revenge. She tells the class that she decided to teach the two boys a lesson herself. According to her, she took blood from her HIV-positive husband and secretly mixed it into the milk of student A and student B. She personally watched both of them drink every last drop. The classroom is instantly thrown into chaos. Yuko calmly explains that if her plan worked, the two boys would eventually become infected. She reminds them that the virus can take months before it becomes detectable. Until then, they would have plenty of time to think about their actions, reflect on what they had done, and perhaps finally understand the pain they caused. By this point, everyone in the classroom knows exactly who she is talking about. There is only one student capable of creating the electric device, and everyone knows who his closest friend is. Yet Yuko never directly says their names. Instead, she simply advises them to get tested every few months and then quietly waits. Just then, the final bell rings. Yuko's last class is over. But for the two boys, the nightmare is only beginning. A few days later, the new semester starts. A young teacher takes over the class. Unlike Yuko, he is cheerful, energetic, and quickly becomes friends with the students. At first glance, everything appears normal. Most of the class attends school regularly, laughs with their friends, and carries on with their lives. However, one student is missing. Student B, whose real name is Naoki, has completely stopped coming to school. The students explain that he has been under a lot of stress lately. The new teacher finds this concerning and encourages the class to support their absent classmate. To lift Naoki's spirits, he asks everyone to write encouraging notes and messages for him. Soon, the teacher and the class representative begin visiting Naoki's house every week, hoping to convince him to return to school. But every time they arrive, Naoki's mother finds an excuse to turn them away. She never allows them to see her son and never explains what is happening inside the house. The reason soon becomes clear. Ever since Yuko's final lesson, Naoki has completely changed. He spends nearly all of his time locked inside his room. He obsessively washes anything he touches over and over again. Yet strangely, he refuses to bathe himself. His behavior becomes more disturbing with each passing day. Watching her son deteriorate, Naoki's mother becomes desperate. One day, she secretly gives him sleeping pills. After he falls asleep, she cuts his overgrown hair, trims his nails, thoroughly cleans his room, and finally gives him a proper bath. But when Naoki wakes up, he completely loses control. He notices that his smell is gone. His hair is neatly trimmed. His room is clean. Instead of feeling relieved, he begins screaming uncontrollably. He smashes objects around the room and suffers a violent emotional breakdown. His mother is completely confused. She cannot understand why her son reacts this way. However, she soon notices a pattern. Every time a teacher or student from school comes to visit, Naoki becomes even more agitated. His panic attacks grow stronger, and his behavior becomes more unstable. That realization is exactly why she keeps everyone away from him. Still, one question continues to bother her. Why is Naoki so terrified of the notes his classmates keep sending? One day, she gathers all the notes together and carefully lays them out in front of her. As she studies them, she makes a horrifying discovery. When the first word of each note is combined, they form a hidden message. The murderer dies. The message sends chills down her spine. Desperate for answers, she rushes to confront her son. This time, Naoki finally breaks. He stops hiding the truth and confesses everything. With tears in his eyes, he reveals what really happened that day. When he picked up Yuko's daughter and carried her toward the swimming pool, she was not dead. She had regained consciousness. Naoki knew she was alive, but he was terrified. He was afraid the little girl would tell everyone what he and student A had done. He was afraid of being exposed, afraid of being punished, afraid of looking weak in front of his friend. So despite knowing she was alive, he threw her into the pool anyway. Naoki finally admits that he is the one who murdered Yuko's daughter. He says that part of him wanted to look brave and impressive in front of student A. He didn't want anyone to think he was a coward. Hearing this confession, Naoki's mother feels as if her entire world has collapsed around her. Naoki's confession completely destroys his mother. She collapses under the weight of the truth. Until that moment, she had believed her son was simply troubled and frightened. But now she realizes something far worse. Her own child, who isn't even 12 years old, is responsible for another person's death. Naoki desperately tries to explain himself, but his mother can no longer bear to listen. Over the following days, she falls deeper and deeper into despair. The stress consumes her. Eventually, she reaches a horrifying conclusion. She convinces herself that both she and her son must die. In her mind, she is putting an end to the evil that has entered the world through him. She writes a farewell letter to her husband and prepares herself for the unthinkable. Later that day, she enters Naoki's room carrying a knife. At first, everything seems normal. She hugs her son, speaks gently to him, and acts like a loving mother. Then, without warning, she drives the knife into his chest. Fortunately, the blade does not go deep enough to kill him. The moment Naoki realizes what his mother has done, something inside him snaps. Consumed by fear and rage, he pulls the knife from his own body and lashes out. In a frenzy, he attacks his mother repeatedly. When the rage finally fades, the room falls silent. Only then does Naoki fully understand what he has done. His mother is dead. The realization crushes him. Until now, he had carried the guilt of killing Yuko's daughter. Now he must live with the knowledge that he has also killed his own mother. The weight of two deaths begins tearing his mind apart. Meanwhile, student A, whose name is Watanabe, is facing a different kind of nightmare. Ever since Yuko claimed she had infected him with HIV, the entire school has turned against him. Classmates constantly mock him, avoid him, and treat him like a dangerous disease. For a long time, Watanabe remains silent and endures the bullying. But eventually, he reaches his limit. One day, in a fit of anger, he cuts his own finger and begins waving the bleeding wound in front of the other students. He threatens them, saying that if they continue harassing him, he will use his blood to infect them with HIV as well. The threat terrifies everyone. Surprisingly, the class representative is the only person who stands by his side. Instead of supporting her, the other students begin bullying her as well. They mock her for defending Watanabe and even pressure her into kissing him so she can become infected too. The situation becomes increasingly cruel. Later that day, as the class representative is walking home, Watanabe stops her. He has something important to show her. He pulls out the results of his HIV test. The result is negative. Watanabe explains that he never had HIV at all. Since he isn't infected, there is no danger to her either. Hearing this, the girl feels relieved. For the first time, the two of them have a genuine conversation. As they talk, she asks Watanabe why he behaved so strangely after Yuko's announcement. For the first time, Watanabe opens up about his past. He reveals that his mother was a brilliant scientist. She was intelligent, ambitious, and completely devoted to her research. Unfortunately, she married a man she considered intellectually inferior. Then Watanabe was born, and raising a child forced her to abandon the scientific career she loved. As the years passed, her resentment grew. Instead of seeing her son as someone she loved, she began seeing him as the reason her dreams had been destroyed. To make matters worse, Watanabe turned out to be an ordinary child. He wasn't a genius, he wasn't extraordinary, and his mother couldn't accept that a famous scientist could have such an average son. Eventually, that disappointment transformed into hatred. She blamed him for everything she had sacrificed. She convinced herself that becoming a mother had ruined her future. Because of those feelings, she often abused him. For years, his father had no idea what was happening. The moment his father discovered the truth, he immediately divorced her. After the divorce, Watanabe's mother returned to her scientific career. She resumed her research and moved on with her life as if her son no longer existed. But despite everything, Watanabe never stopped loving her. More than anything, he wanted his mother to notice him again. That desire slowly became an obsession. He began inventing new devices and creating projects because those were the things she valued most. He even uploaded his inventions to the same website where she published her research, hoping that one day she would see his work and recognize him. But she never did. Then, Watanabe reveals something even more heartbreaking. The day he learned that Yuko had supposedly infected him with HIV, he didn't cry. He didn't panic. Instead, he locked himself in a bathroom and laughed. Because for the first time, he believed his mother might come back. He imagined himself becoming seriously ill. He imagined her hearing the news and finally visiting him. In his mind, getting sick meant having a chance to see her again. 3 months later, he finally underwent testing, and the result came back negative. Watanabe continues his story and reveals that after receiving the negative test result, he felt completely hopeless. He had secretly believed that becoming sick would finally make his mother come back into his life. But now, even that possibility was gone. Determined to get her attention somehow, he decided to make himself famous. Up until then, nobody paid attention to anything he posted online. His inventions received almost no views, no comments, and no recognition. That's when he chose a darker path. To attract attention, he began creating shocking demonstrations involving animals. He used his inventions in cruel experiments and uploaded the videos online. In his mind, he wasn't trying to hurt animals for fun. He wanted to show how his inventions could be used against criminals and thieves. But the audience didn't care about his explanations. They only cared about the disturbing content. Suddenly, his videos exploded in popularity. Views increased, comments flooded in. For the first time, people were paying attention to him. Believing he had finally discovered the secret to becoming famous, Watanabe continued posting increasingly extreme content. Yet, despite all the attention, there was still one person who never noticed him: his mother. After hearing his painful story, the class representative begins sympathizing with him. For the first time, Watanabe feels as if someone genuinely understands him. Slowly, the two become friends. One day, however, the class representative accidentally leaves her diary behind. Curious, Watanabe opens it and begins reading. What he discovers completely shatters his trust. The diary reveals that the class representative had been secretly working with Yuko all along. The new teacher was also involved. Both of them had accepted money from Yuko and helped carry out her plan. The visits to Naoki's house, the letters, and even the hidden message that spelled out "the murderer dies" had all been carefully orchestrated. According to the diary, the class representative herself had deliberately emphasized certain words to create that threatening message. Watanabe feels completely betrayed. The one person he thought cared about him now appears to be part of Yuko's revenge. His mind immediately spirals into paranoia. He becomes convinced that nobody in the world can be trusted. If even his only friend was secretly helping Yuko, then perhaps everyone hated him. The following day, the class representative arrives to meet him at his mother's former laboratory. She tries to explain the situation, but Watanabe is already beyond reason. Every word she speaks feels like another betrayal. In his mind, she was never his friend. She was only another piece in Yuko's plan. Consumed by rage, Watanabe grabs a knife and attacks her. The confrontation quickly turns deadly. When it is over, the class representative is gone, becoming yet another victim of the tragedy surrounding Yuko's revenge. Afterward, Watanabe hides the evidence and continues acting as if nothing happened. The most disturbing part is that he feels almost no fear. He knows that because of his age, the law can only do so much to punish him. That belief gives him a dangerous sense of confidence. Soon afterward, Watanabe records a video confession. In the video, he explains everything he has done and reveals his final plan. He has secretly built a bomb and intends to plant it at the school's upcoming annual ceremony. His plan is simple. During the event, he will stand in front of everyone, deliver a speech, and then detonate the bomb. More than anything, he wants his mother to finally recognize his intelligence. If she won't notice his inventions, then perhaps she will notice an act so shocking that nobody could ignore it. After uploading the video with a scheduled release time, Watanabe secretly installs the bomb inside the school. The next day arrives. Everything unfolds exactly as he imagined. He gives his speech, and the audience applauds. Believing his moment has finally come, he reaches for his phone and presses the button that should trigger the explosion. Nothing happens. Confused and terrified, Watanabe leaves the auditorium and encounters someone he never expected to see: Yuko. Throughout the entire semester, Yuko had been watching him. She had followed his online activity, read every blog post, and monitored every video he uploaded. Through those posts, she discovered his bombing plan long before the event began. As a result, she had already located and removed the bomb, preventing a disaster and saving every student in the school. But Yuko isn't finished. She delivers one final blow. Yuko tells Watanabe that she understands why he did all of this. It was never about fame. It was never about science. Everything was about gaining his mother's attention. Then she reveals something devastating. Earlier that morning, she visited Watanabe's mother and handed her a package, claiming it was a gift from her son. But his mother refused to even open it. She wanted nothing to do with him. Inside that package was the bomb. Yuko explains that the moment Watanabe pressed the detonation button at school, the explosion occurred elsewhere. If his mother had cared enough to open the gift, she would have discovered the danger. But she didn't. Her hatred and rejection prevented her from ever looking inside. Yuko then tells him the cruel truth. The very person he spent his entire life trying to impress never wanted to acknowledge him. And now, because of his own actions, he has lost the last chance he ever had. The words hit Watanabe harder than anything before. His body begins shaking. Blood starts flowing from his nose. Surrounded by cheering students who have no idea what just happened, he collapses into complete emotional ruin. For Yuko, this is the final stage of her revenge. She turns around and walks away, leaving Watanabe alone with the unbearable consequences of everything he has done. And with that chilling conclusion, the movie comes to an end.